So here's something kind of wild. The biggest banks in the world have quietly picked a blockchain to tokenize real assets on. It's called Canton. And yet, if you tried to actually use Canton today, you'd basically hit a wall. No easy front door, no simple wallet, nothing that feels like click, install, and go. So a small team looked at that gap and said, okay, that right there is the whole opportunity. That team is Cantor 8. And quick thing, no, this isn't Cantor Fitzgerald, the old Wall Street firm, totally unrelated company. Stick with me, because this is a great story about who actually wins when an entire industry moves on chain. So let's start with the thing Cantor 8 is built on, because it really matters. Canton is a blockchain, but not the kind you're probably picturing. It was built by a company called Digital Asset, and it's made for institutions, banks, asset managers, the serious money, with privacy baked right in, so two firms can settle a trade without broadcasting it to the whole world. That's the part Wall Street loves. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. A blockchain on its own is just rails, train tracks. And tracks are useless until somebody builds the stations, the ticket machines, the actual trains. For institutions, those trains are things like a wallet to hold the assets, custody you can trust, a way to issue tokens, compliance checks that keep regulators comfortable. Canton had the tracks. It didn't really have the stations. And that's the gap these two people set out to fill. Cantor 8 was founded by Philip Kaddaj, and honestly, his background isn't what you'd expect. The guy studied pure mathematics at Cambridge and Imperial, even started a PhD before diving into this. His co-founder, Rennie Achkar, runs the marketing side as Chief Marketing Officer. And their whole pitch is one line they love to repeat. They want to be the ConsenSys of Canton. Now, if ConsenSys means nothing to you, just think of it as the company that built the everyday tools that made Ethereum usable for normal humans. Cantor 8 wants to be that, but for this institutional chain. Real tools, not slideware. That's basically the motto. Okay, so what do they actually build? Let's walk the toolkit, because this is where it all clicks. The flagship is the C8 Enterprise Wallet, and Kaddaj has this great way of describing it. He says downloading C8 is like downloading MetaMask back in 2016, meaning early, but it's the front door. It's actually the first native mobile wallet on Canton, and it's self-custody, which is just a fancy way of saying you hold your own keys and your own assets. Nobody's sitting in the middle. For a regular person, that's normal. For an institution, self-custody that's still compliant, yeah, that's kind of a holy grail. Then there's C8 Registry. Think of this as the printing press for tokenized assets. A bank can issue a digital version of, say, a bond or a fund, with the compliance rules written directly into the token itself. Next is C8 Vault, and this one's clever. It's where you park digital assets to earn yield, and they've got this recursive vault idea that automatically restakes your returns, all running on smart contracts. On top of that, they run validator nodes, which are basically the machines that keep the network honest, plus private swap tools to trade assets, and a team that writes custom smart contracts in Canton's language, which is called DAML. So picture all of that as one box. Instead of a bank hiring engineers for 2 years to build Canton plumbing from scratch, they just plug into Cantor 8. It's the Stripe move, right? You don't build a payment system, you just add Stripe. Same exact energy here. Now, here's where most videos would just keep cheerleading. I'm not going to, because the honest version is actually more impressive. So let's separate the marketing from what's really shipped. On the verifiable side, it's genuinely cool. The C8 wallet is live. It's on Google Play right now. And back in February, working with a payroll company called Toku, they pulled off the first ever private stablecoin payroll on Canton. So a global company actually paid its staff in stablecoins on-chain, with the amounts kept private. A real thing that happened, not a press release fantasy. Then in April, it got even more sci-fi. An AI agent made the first private payment on Canton, on its own, using something they call P402. Quick context. You might have heard of Coinbase's X402, which lets software pay software out in the open. Well, P402 is the private version of that, built for institutions that can't broadcast every move. So that's the wow column. But here's me keeping it honest, because trust matters way more than hype. A lot of the heavier institutional stuff, the full issuance suite, the compliance and identity modules, that's still roadmap, not fully shipped. And that line you'll see, that Cantor 8 is one of only 4 Canton-endorsed wallets, that's their own framing. Canton itself just says verified and lists a handful of wallets with no special ranking. And honestly, I respect that they're early and willing to say so. The teams that tell you what isn't done yet are usually the ones worth watching. So if the wallet is the present, this next part is the giant swing at the future. Earlier this year, at a summit over in Hong Kong, Cantor 8 lined up with a group called EDENA on something they're calling an autonomic financial OS, basically a system for bringing sovereign and state-linked wealth on-chain, with Cantor 8 as the on-ramp onto Canton. And the headline number everyone repeats is $100 billion. Now, I've got to be straight with you, because this is exactly where people get misled. That 100 billion is not money that has moved. It's a pipeline, an ambition. The honest figure is an initial pipeline of around 20 billion plus, with a stated potential above 100 billion. And so far, $0 actually confirmed migrated onto the chain. So treat it as a target, not a trophy. But, and this is why it still matters, even the pipeline tells you who's circling Canton. And there's a structural detail here a lot of people miss. On Canton, the way the rewards are designed, most of the network's coin rewards flow to the apps and the builders, not just the validators. So a company like Cantor 8 building actual applications on top, the economics quietly lean in their favor. That's the kind of thing that never makes a headline, but really shapes who ends up winning. And here's the turn that honestly made me like this whole story more. Because you'd assume a company chasing sovereign wealth funds would have zero interest in regular people. But Cantor 8's other big bet is Africa. They signed an agreement with a company called Yiksi to bring African mobile money on chain. And I mean the giants like M-PESA in Kenya and EVC Plus in Somalia. If you've never used mobile money, here's why it's such a big deal. In Kenya, around 85% of adults move money through their phone like this. In Somalia, it's roughly 87% of people. We're talking on the order of $1 trillion a year flowing through East African mobile money. And a real chunk of that value, billions of it, actually leaks offshore through stablecoins because the local rails don't connect cleanly to the global system. So the idea is, take the mobile money people already trust and put it onto Canton's compliant rails. They even launched a second initiative with EDENA called Concordia, aimed at unifying East African settlement. Now, fair warning, same honesty as before. These are agreements and pilots, early innings, not a product you can use today. But think about what it represents. The same plumbing Cantor 8 is building for Wall Street could hand someone who's never had a bank account programmable, compliant money on a phone they already own. That's the whole thesis landing. Usable infrastructure isn't only for the giants. So let's zoom out. The big bet underneath everything Cantor 8 is doing is this. The winner of the Canton era might not be Canton itself. It might be whoever makes Canton usable, the picks and shovels. And the honest scorecard today? A real live wallet plus 2 genuine industry firsts on one side and some very big aspirational pipelines on the other. Both true at once. And that's what makes this genuinely worth watching. Because whether it's a sovereign wealth fund or someone in Nairobi with a phone, Cantor 8 is answering the same question. How do you make this stuff easy enough to actually use? So if this got you curious, here's something you can do. No tokens, no hype. Read the free Canton and DAML docs at docs.digitalasset.com and see the rails yourself. The C8 wallet's live on Google Play if you want one to poke at. And watch whether that EDENA or Africa money actually lands on chain. That's the real proof. Subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.